Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV's continuous coverage of US President Donald Trump's two-day visit to India. I'm Frank Rausen Pereira. We're going to continue to get you all the live updates of the ongoing visit. These visuals are from earlier today, of course, that you can see on your screens right now. The US President, Prime Minister and the First Lady at Hyderabad House right now. Delegation level talks taking place there. A joint statement is expected in a short while from now, where both leaders will address the media and talk about what it is that they have achieved really as far as some of those deals are concerned. We are going to continue our discussion here in our studio. Harshvi Pant, Drusi Katoch and Neeraj Srivastav are still with us in the studio today to talk about all the developments we've seen. Day one, of course, went on very, very well. President Trump also tweeted and spoke about how he had a fabulous day in India. Even at Hyderabad House, he spoke about how he thoroughly enjoyed his day, and also he was pleased to see several thousand people at the Motera Stadium or the Sardar Patel Stadium in Ahmedabad. And he also said that he was happy to see so many people still trying to enter the stadium when he reached there. To continue our discussion here, of course, Professor, day one went on splendidly well, and that's something that the President himself has admitted and he has spoken about. Clearly, we've made an impression as far as the visiting dignitary is concerned. What can we expect on day two?
Well, I think some of the indications from his speech, which was quite remarkable coming from Mr. Trump, I think the sense that he clearly thinks that issues like defense, energy, space, health and education might be the centerpiece today, and on trade the negotiations would continue as he has indicated a number of times before. But perhaps we are moving towards a more ambitious trade deal than we had anticipated earlier, but it will come later. But he has also talked a lot about counter-terror. He also mentioned Pakistan in a certain context. And I think it would be interesting to see what comes out of the on Afghanistan-Pakistan conversation between the two sides, where we have divergences and we have not been able to reconcile them so far. So if perhaps this becomes a platform or an opportunity where the two countries can actually reconcile some of those differences, it would be great. But I think on the larger counter-terror front, he was quite emphatic that India and America would work together towards countering Islamist extremism and terrorism, and how the two countries already have achieved a lot. And I think that might be the significance of this visit as well, along with the idea of the free and open Indo-Pacific, where perhaps a lot is happening since the idea was first unveiled under President Obama to Mr. Trump. So we are looking at at a panoply of issues where India and I think it also gives you a sense that Indo-US relationship are so broad and so deep that almost on every single issue we are working together, and we may have divergences here and there, but I think there is no single issue of bilateral importance that we have not covered, that some sort of institutional arrangement is not present, where the two countries have not been able to mature those institutional arrangements, and where the two countries are increasingly convergent on how they view not only the strategic picture, but also how do you operationalize some of the sentiment behind the strategic mapping.
Okay, all right. General, talking about how the relationship, of course, goes and is an all-encompassing relationship, let's talk about a few specifics. Some big-ticket deals, agreements are expected to be signed as far as defense procurement is concerned. What's on the agenda for today?
Oh, I think the helicopter deal will certainly be signed. The indications are very clear when the Cabinet Committee on Security gave its clearance just a few days back before President Trump's visit. And yesterday in his speech at Motera, President Trump actually made it very clear that we will be giving weapons worth about $3 billion. So that takes care of the helicopter deal. That is the Seahawk helicopters for the Indian Navy. Now, this has been the requirement of the Indian Navy for a very long time, and it has finally fructified. It is going to give great power and strength to the Indian Navy as far as its operational capability is concerned. So now that aspect has been taken care of. Earlier also, you see, we have already bought the Apache helicopters, that is the attack helicopter. We bought the Chinooks which is a heavy-duty lift helicopter, which has increased your operational capability as far as our land borders are concerned. And perhaps there may be more of these helicopters purchased, depending upon India's buying power capacity. Now I think the next big ticket item, which is when we're looking at it, is what the Americans are talking about, an advanced air defense system. We've already got we will be getting the S-400 from Russia. I really do not know how this will be compatible with that, or they may be used in different sectors. So to that extent, I don't visualize it's too much of a problem having two sets of systems for two different areas. I mean, after all, India is a very big country, and you may require one system separately for the northern and eastern borders, and one system separately for the western
General,
borders.
just hold that thought. Melania Trump, the First Lady, is addressing the gathering at the school, a government school in Delhi. Let's listen in.
This beautiful school. Thank you, Mary, for your kind introduction and for welcoming me with the lovely Talik tradition and with a beautiful dance performance. This is my first visit to India, and I cannot express how delightful it is. The people here are so welcoming and so kind. The President and I are grateful to be guests for a beautiful country and to have received such a warm reception during our time here. I learned that your school's name, Sarvodaya, means prosperity for all. As I walked around, I was able to see how the concept exists in curriculum, in the leadership of the teachers, and in the spirit of enthusiasm of the students. A short while ago, I visited a classroom and observed its happiness curriculum. It is very inspiring to me that the students here begin each day by participating mindfulness. From mindful breathing, telling a story to a friend, listening to another classmate, or simply connecting with nature, I cannot think of a better way for all of us to start our day. I also visited one of your primary school reading classrooms and learned about the reading program, encouraging students to explore books of their own interest is very effective and increases reading habits and life skills. Back home in the United States, I work with children like you to promote similar ideas of well-being through my Be Best initiative. The 3 pillars of Be Best include the dangers of drug abuse, the importance of online safety, and the overall well-being of children. It is my hope that by talking about the values of Be Best with young people in the United States and around the world, our children, teachers, and parents will strive to share them with family and friends throughout their own communities. As I travel around the world, I'm inspired not only by programs like the reading classroom and the happiness curriculum, but also by the people who dedicated themselves to helping children overcome the many issues they face each day. Seeing your programs firsthand and hearing from your dedicated educators has been a great experience and prove that the principles of Be Best are not just limited to the United States, but can be found throughout the world. This school exemplifies that promoting values of kindness, compassion, and respect can bring about positive change within your communities. Before I leave today,
Well, there you have it, of course, Melania Trump at a government school in Delhi, being given a very warm welcome, talking about the welcome itself, talking about how she liked getting the tilak that was given to her, a traditional welcome that she was accorded there at the school. And she was speaking and addressing the gathering there about the visit itself and about what is it exactly that has touched her about her visit. This, of course, is the Sarvodaya Government School, which is in Delhi, and this was a school that was chosen by her to be visited. And as the US President and Prime Minister Narendra Modi are huddled up for their delegation level talk, Melania Trump, in the meanwhile, the First Lady of the United States has moved on to a school, a government school in Delhi, where she was accorded a very ceremonial welcome. Ambassador, let me just quickly come to you. You know, in fact, as far as the First Lady is concerned, you know, the President is, of course, holding the delegation level talks. These are visuals that we can see from the school. What kind of a message really does it send out, the First Lady going to a government school?
It sends out a very positive message because the vast majority of our children study in government schools, and particularly, for families whose incomes are not very high. It gives the message that, first of all, that the standard of teaching in the government schools is improving. And I have seen that happening myself in front of my own eyes. It is good that she chose to visit a Sarvodaya school instead of an elite private primary school where the children of the rich and the privileged go. Because what India needs to do is to improve the level of its primary education. Private schools are fine, but they don't cater to the vast majority of our children. So it is a positive message as far as we are concerned, that she chose to go to a Sarvodaya school. Seeing these visuals, more schools in this category will feel encouraged to improve their standards all round, teaching, hygiene, cleanliness, everything. I am particularly very pleased that this visit took place.
You know, while we have these visuals on our screens, we got a glimpse of the podium as well a short while ago, where the podium is being readied for the joint statement to be addressed by the US President as well as the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. These are live visuals that you see on your screens. The stage is almost set. We are going to witness the joint statement in a short while from now. You know, talking about the joint statement itself, Ambassador, take us through what really goes into preparing this joint statement, you know, how much of work is put into it. You know, there's a lot of back and forth. Many people don't understand it, but there's a lot of back and forth that happens and a lot of work goes into actually preparing the statement.
Yes, a lot of work and a lot of time goes into this. The finished product, will come out in the media. But what the process which actually takes place is that, the embassies of both the countries are involved in this, and drafts and counter drafts are submitted to each other by the two sides with sometimes square brackets. Now, square brackets indicate that these are areas where we need clarifications, we need some compromise, and then officials of the two sides continue to work, on the draft joint communique. Midnight oil is burnt, and commas and full stops, etc., also are sometimes considered important. And in the end, this process continues right till the last moment, because both sides want to get the maximum mileage out of it. But then it is good that there is a certain kind of deadline also imposed.
So what is the deadline, Ambassador? Is there a realistic, is there an agreed upon deadline, or how does it work really?
Well, yes, everything has to be agreed upon. I think there is nothing unilateral in this. Everything has to be agreed upon, and I think the guillotine, if I may use that word, is imposed by time. Because the whole visit has to take place within a certain time framework, and so far as I know, we have not achieved the capacity to either increase the length of time or decrease the length of time. Apologies to Mr. Einstein. So we have to stick by the timelines, and that imposes a certain limit. Which we will see imposed just now. And in anticipation, people have already, you have said that they have started sitting down and waiting for the two leaders to emerge, which I hope we'll see shortly. And I hope that both of them will emerge with broad smiles on their faces, signaling that both sides are happy. Because that is the ideal outcome, that both sides should be happy. There should be give and take, and both sides should be happy.
Absolutely. One more question before I move on to the others, Ambassador. Sure. As far as last-minute changes to the joint statement itself are concerned, how much of scope or how much of elbow room is there to incorporate these last-minute changes?
Last-minute changes can happen only when instructions come from the highest level. It is not within the power of the bureaucrats to include last-minute changes. What typically happens is that instructions come from one side or another, depending on which side is asked to make these changes, that, either the President wants this to happen or the Prime Minister wants this to happen. But these are, let me clarify, few and far between. They are the exception rather than the rule.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Professor, we are just waiting for the leaders now to come and address. As far as trade is concerned, let's come back to that particular topic because it has been discussed extensively. How do our diplomats, how does our missionary and how do our bureaucrats react to a situation where on one day the visiting dignitary talks about how there is going to be no trade deal at all, and the next day he talks about maybe there could be something that is worked out. So how do you prepare for a situation like that?
I think because trade has been such a focal point for Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump's various tweets and various reactions to this issue probably reflect the back and forth that is happening between the negotiators themselves rather than his own inclination to assess the situation. So I think probably he's looking at what, or he's being told that at one point that that perhaps the developments are taking place which may lead to a deal, and then the next day no, perhaps it's not being, we are stuck. But I think what is important to me is the fact that he, who has been so critical of India, remains committed to a deal with India, and he has not, despite saying things here and there, he has largely been positive about the possibility of this deal with India, now even saying that possibly it will happen after elections, and also acknowledging the fact that perhaps it will be a major trade deal, including some are anticipating a free trade agreement with India at some point, which will alleviate some of these concerns that both sides have. So perhaps I think the ambition has moved from really signing a very narrow deal to one where a broader, a more comprehensive deal can be charted out. Because initially, if you recall, we had come to the mini trade deal. First, the idea was we will sign a comprehensive deal. Then the idea was, oh, that's not happening. Let's focus on a particular deliverable. And that deliverable could be a mini trade deal because Mr. Trump would not come to India without a deliverable. So the fact that he came to India without a deliverable on trade, and the fact that I think he has been very positive so far about the visit, I think tells you that he also perhaps at some point remains committed and positive about the fact that he would be able to conclude a deal with India at some point. So I think that tells you a different story, that perhaps some of us were anticipating at one point. So maybe what we are going to see is laying out of a framework by the two sides today, giving broad parameters, and then the deal can be concluded later on, because as of now we know that there are serious differences between the two sides, and those differences are yet to be resolved.
Absolutely. General, is this also a pattern that we see in the President of the United States? He talks about how all is not well, maybe on some levels, talks about that maybe the expectations then are lowered, and then he visits that particular nation or visits that and meets the head of state, and then he says, he gives you something to take away from. So, is that a pattern? Is that a pattern that has emerged?
This is well, it could very well be a pattern. It could very well be a methodology of functioning.
I'm sorry, let me just cut you short, General. I mean, the leaders have emerged now. We can see them walking towards the podium where we will hear them addressing the joint statement together. Ambassador, you're talking about smiles and happiness. It looks like both gentlemen are extremely cordial and smiling at the moment. So that's a good sign, isn't it?
I'm smiling a lot also.
So the press conference.
It's a very good sign.
It is indeed a very good sign. Yes, General, go ahead.
Yeah, so, when you actually raise expectations too high and then they don't come up, people think it's a failure. And when you say nothing's going to happen and something comes up, we treat it as a success. So these are psychological ploys, and I think if President Trump is using it, well, that's a very fair one.
Okay, let's listen to the live audio from the venue.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Before I begin with the press event, I would like to announce the 3 documents which were concluded during the visit. First was an MOU on mental health between the Department of Health and Family Welfare of the Government of the Republic of India and the Department of Health and Human Services of the Government of the United States of America. Second was an MOU on the safety of medical products between the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization within the Directorate General of Health Services of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare of the Republic of India and the Food and Drug Administration of the Department of Health and Human Services of the United States of America. And finally, a letter of cooperation between Indian Oil Corporation Limited and ExxonMobil India LNG Limited and Chart Industries Incorporation. I now begin the proceedings for the press event. To begin, may I request the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, to deliver his statement to the press.
मेरे मित्र और अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति डोनाल्ड ट्रंप, अमेरिकी डेलीगेशन के सम्मानित सदस्यगण, लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, नमस्ते। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप और उनके डेलीगेशन का भारत में एक बार फिर हार्दिक स्वागत है। मुझे विशेष खुशी है कि इस यात्रा पर वो अपने परिवार के साथ आए हैं। पिछले 8 महीनों में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप और मेरे बीच ये 5वीं मुलाकात है। कल मोटेरा में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का अनप्रेसिडेंटेड और हिस्टोरिकल वेलकम हमेशा याद रखा जाएगा। कल ये फिर से स्पष्ट हुआ कि अमेरिका और भारत के संबंध सिर्फ 2 सरकारों के बीच नहीं है, बल्कि पीपल ड्रिवन है, पीपल सेंट्रिक है। यह संबंध 21वीं सदी की सबसे महत्वपूर्ण पार्टनरशिप में है और इसलिए आज राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप और मैंने हमारे संबंधों को कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव ग्लोबल स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के स्तर पर ले जाने का निर्णय लिया है। संबंधों को इस मुकाम तक लाने में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का अमूल्य योगदान रहा है। फ्रेंड्स, आज हमारी चर्चा में हमने इस पार्टनरशिप के हर अहम पहलू पर सकारात्मक विचार किया, चाहे वो डिफेंस एंड सिक्योरिटी हो, एनर्जी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप हो, टेक्नोलॉजी कोऑपरेशन हो, ग्लोबल कनेक्टिविटी हो, ट्रेड रिलेशंस हो या फिर पीपल टू पीपल टाइज। भारत और अमेरिका के बीच बढ़ता रक्षा और सुरक्षा सहयोग हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप का एक बहुत अहम हिस्सा है। अत्याधुनिक रक्षा उपकरण व प्लेटफॉर्म पर सहयोग से भारत की डिफेंस क्षमता में बढ़ोतरी हुई है। हमारे डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरर्स एक दूसरे की सप्लाई चेन्स का हिस्सा बन रहे हैं। भारतीय फोर्सेस आज सबसे अधिक ट्रेनिंग एक्सरसाइज यूएसए के फोर्सेस के साथ कर रही है। पिछले कुछ सालों में हमारी सेनाओं के बीच इंटर ऑपरेबिलिटी में अनप्रेसिडेंटेड वृद्धि हुई है। फ्रेंड्स, इसी तरह हम अपने होमलैंड्स की सुरक्षा और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय अपराध से लड़ने के लिए भी सहयोग बढ़ा रहे हैं। आज होमलैंड सिक्योरिटी पर हुए निर्णय से इस सहयोग को और बल मिलेगा। आतंक के समर्थकों को जिम्मेदार ठहराने के लिए आज हमने अपने प्रयासों को और बढ़ाने का निश्चय किया है। प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने ड्रग्स और ओपियोइड क्राइसिस से लड़ाई को प्राथमिकता दी है। आज हमारे बीच ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग, नार्को टेररिज्म और ऑर्गेनाइज क्राइम जैसी गंभीर समस्याओं के बारे में एक नए मैकेनिज्म पर भी सहमति हुई है। फ्रेंड्स, कुछ ही समय पहले स्थापित हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक एनर्जी पार्टनरशिप सुदृढ़ होती जा रही है और इस क्षेत्र में आपसी निवेश बढ़ा है। तेल और गैस के लिए अमेरिका भारत का एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण स्रोत बन गया है। पिछले 4 वर्षों में हमारा कुल एनर्जी व्यापार करीब $20 बिलियन रहा है। रिन्यूएबल हो या न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी, हमारे कोऑपरेशन को नई ऊर्जा मिल रही है। फ्रेंड्स, इसी तरह इंडस्ट्री 4.0 और 21st सेंचुरी की अन्य उभरती टेक्नोलॉजीज, उस पर भी इंडिया यूएस पार्टनरशिप इनोवेशन और एंटरप्राइज के नए मुकाम स्थापित कर रही है। भारतीय प्रोफेशनल्स के टैलेंट ने अमेरिकी कंपनीज की टेक्नोलॉजी लीडरशिप को मजबूत किया है। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और अमेरिका आर्थिक क्षेत्र में ओपननेस और फेयर एंड बैलेंस ट्रेड के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। पिछले 3 वर्षों में हमारे द्विपक्षीय व्यापार में डबल डिजिट ग्रोथ हुई है और वह ज्यादा संतुलित भी हुआ है। अगर एनर्जी, सिविल एयरक्राफ्ट्स, डिफेंस और हायर एजुकेशन ले तो पिछले 4-5 सालों में सिर्फ इन 4 सेक्टर्स ने ही भारत अमेरिका के आर्थिक संबंधों में लगभग $70 बिलियन का योगदान किया है। इसमें से काफी कुछ राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की नीतियों और फैसलों के कारण संभव हुआ है। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि आने वाले समय में यह आंकड़ा काफी बढ़ जाएगा। जहां तक बायलैटरल ट्रेड का सवाल है, हमारे कॉमर्स मिनिस्टर्स के बीच सकारात्मक वार्ताएं हुई हैं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप और मैं आज सहमत हुए हैं कि हमारे कॉमर्स मिनिस्टर के बीच जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग बनी है उसे हमारी टीम्स लीगल रूप दें। हम एक बड़ी ट्रेड डील के लिए नेगोशिएशन शुरू करने पर भी सहमत हुए हैं। हमें आशा है कि आपसी हित में इसके अच्छे परिणाम निकलेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, वैश्विक स्तर पर भारत और अमेरिका का सहयोग हमारे समान लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों और उद्देश्यों पर आधारित है। खासकर इंडो पैसिफिक और ग्लोबल कॉमन्स में रूल बेस्ड इंटरनेशनल ऑर्डर के लिए यह सहयोग विशेष महत्व रखता है। हम दोनों देश विश्व में कनेक्टिविटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के विकास में सस्टेनेबल एंड ट्रांसपेरेंट फाइनेंसिंग के महत्व पर सहमत है। हमारा यह आपसी तालमेल एक दूसरे के ही नहीं बल्कि विश्व के हित में है। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और अमेरिका की इस स्पेशल मित्रता की सबसे महत्वपूर्ण नींव हमारे पीपल टू पीपल रिलेशंस हैं, चाहे वो प्रोफेशनल्स हो या स्टूडेंट्स। यूएसए में इंडियन डायस्पोरा का इसमें सबसे बड़ा योगदान रहा है। भारत के ये एम्बेसडर्स ना सिर्फ अपने टैलेंट और परिश्रम से यूएसए की अर्थव्यवस्था में कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं, बल्कि अपने डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज और समृद्ध कल्चर से अमेरिकन सोसाइटी को भी एनरिच कर रहे हैं। मैंने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से अनुरोध किया है कि हमारे प्रोफेशनल्स के सोशल सिक्योरिटी कंट्रीब्यूशन पर टोटलाइजेशन एग्रीमेंट को दोनों पक्ष चर्चा आगे बढ़ाएं। यह आपसी हित में होगा। फ्रेंड्स, इन सभी आयामों में हमारे रिश्तों को और मजबूत बनाने में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की यह यात्रा ने ऐतिहासिक भूमिका निभाई है। एक बार फिर मैं प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप को भारत आने के लिए और भारत अमेरिका संबंधों को नई ऊंचाई पर पहुंचाने के लिए हार्दिक धन्यवाद देता हूं। थैंक यू।
Well, thank you very much. And Prime Minister Modi, this has been a very special visit. Unforgettable, extraordinary. What can you say? Very, very wonderful to be with you. Thank you very much. And Melania and I have been awed by the majesty of India and the exceptional kindness and generosity of the Indian people. We'll always remember the magnificent welcome the citizens of your home state showed us upon arrival. It was a profound expression of strength and of real love. Really, it was love. And I think everybody saw that, everybody witnessed that for themselves. The First Lady and I also reflected on the memory of Mahatma Gandhi at his ashram, and this morning in Delhi, we laid a wreath in his honor. We visited one of your nation's most stunning cultural treasures, the world-famous Taj Mahal, and we look forward to continuing our visit tonight during a wonderful state banquet with President Kovind at the Presidential Palace. I know Prime Minister Modi will agree that this has been a very productive visit for both of our countries. Earlier today, we expanded our defense cooperation with agreements for India to purchase more than $3 billion of advanced American military equipment, including Apache and MH-60 Romeo helicopters, the finest in the world. These deals will enhance our joint defense capabilities as our militaries continue to train and operate side by side. In our discussions, Prime Minister Modi and I affirmed our two countries' commitment to protecting our citizens from radical Islamic terrorism. In this effort, the United States is also working productively with Pakistan to confront terrorists who operate on its soil. Together, the Prime Minister and I are revitalizing the Quad initiative with the United States, India, Australia, and Japan. Since I took office, we have held the first Quad ministerial meeting. I guess you would call it a meeting, but it seems like so much more than that, an expanded cooperation on counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and maritime security to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. As we deepen our partnership with India, we remember that our two countries have always been united by shared traditions of democracy and constitutions that protect freedom, individual rights, and the rule of law. During our visit, we discussed the importance of a secure 5G wireless network and the need for this emerging technology to be a tool for freedom, progress, prosperity, not to do anything where it could be even conceived as a conduit for suppression and censorship. To guarantee that the infrastructure of the future is built in a safe, transparent, and accountable manner, the United States is working with a range of partners, including Australia and Japan, to create the Blue Dot Network, a major initiative to ensure countries around the world to have access to private sector-led, sustainable, and trustworthy options for high-quality infrastructure development, and that's what's happening. Another major focus of my discussions with Prime Minister Modi is forging bilateral economic relationships that is fair and reciprocal. Our teams have made tremendous progress on a comprehensive trade agreement, and I'm optimistic we can reach a deal that will be of great importance to both countries. Since I took office, U.S. exports to India are up nearly 60%, and exports of high-quality American energy have grown by, thank you very much, 500%. That's great. As India grows, so do its energy needs. Yesterday, ExxonMobil signed a deal to improve India's natural gas distribution network so that the U.S. can export even more LNG to India. We are pleased to be joined by the chairman of ExxonMobil LNG Market Development, Alex Volkov. Thank you, Alex, wherever you may be. Where is Alex? Is here someplace? Alex, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex. And the CEO of Chart Energy and Chemicals, Jillian Ivanko. Thank you very much. Thank you both. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you very much. That's a big deal, Alex, right? Can you handle it? I think so, right? It's great. To further strengthen our economic ties, the United States is pleased to announce that the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation will be establishing a permanent presence right here. America is especially committed to working with India to improve development and empower women entrepreneurs. That is why my daughter Ivanka attended the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad to highlight women's economic empowerment. Ivanka, please, great job you've done. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have since launched the WGDP initiative, which is now spearheading projects supporting women in the economy from New Delhi to Kolkata. In our meetings with the Prime Minister, we discussed and agreed to create a counter-narcotics working group to confront the growing threat of illicit fentanyl and opioid production. We must rid our societies of these lethal, horrible poisons. We will rid our societies of these bad drugs that are pouring in. Prime Minister Modi, we have made tremendous advances for our people over the past 2 days. And working together, I know that our two nations will continue to achieve new breakthroughs, unlock new potential, and forge even brighter futures in the years ahead. We think we're at a point where our relationship is so special with India. It has never been as good as it is right now, and I think that's because the two leaders of each country, really, we feel very strongly about each other, and we have done something that's very unique, and we've made some wonderful deals for each of our countries. Once again, we want to thank you and the entire nation of India for honoring the United States with its outstanding welcome. And I'm pleased to say that the U.S.-Indian partnership is now truly stronger than ever before. This was a great visit with a tremendous friend and a tremendous leader, Prime Minister Modi. We won't be taking questions now. I'll be having a news conference at 5 o'clock. And we'll take plenty of questions. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. This concludes the press event. Thank you all for joining.
The statements by Prime Minister Modi as well as US President Donald Trump, they're talking about various issues that were discussed between the two leaders. Of course, 3 MOUs have been signed as well. MOU on mental health, MOU on safety of medical products, and an MOU on energy security or energy cooperation. Prime Minister Modi there welcoming the US President Trump, talking about how the visit has gone on, how it has been an unprecedented welcome that he received, and how it has been a historic visit of the US President. US President also thanking Prime Minister Modi for the ceremonial welcome, very happy with what he saw in Ahmedabad. He was pleased to have been at the Taj Mahal along with his wife, is something that he spoke about. He spoke about defense cooperation between India and the United States. Another important announcement was how both leaders spoke about expanding the Quad initiative. Also, tackling radical Islam terror is something that both the leaders spoke about, talking about the US President specifically mentioning Pakistan and how the US is working with Pakistan to try and deal with terror emanating out of Pakistan. He also spoke about how to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific, and also said that there have been a lot of developments on the economic front, and he is hopeful and he is certain that a mega trade deal will be worked out and announced sometime in the near future. Ambassador, the big takeaways for you from the statement that we just witnessed?
Yeah, sure. I think there are some expected takeaways and some unexpected takeaways. Expected takeaways include sale of military hardware to India, cooperation in counter-terrorism. Unexpected takeaways include the Blue Dot network, which is, some people have described it as, a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which actually has caused bankruptcies in certain countries. The MOU on mental health, that is an unexpected takeaway. Cooperation in controlling of narcotics and other psychotropic substances, that is interesting and it is important. Regional security, I think that is an expected takeaway. So all in all, I think other than, for example, a mega trade deal which has been, which has not been reached, I think this visit has produced more than what was expected.
Right.
And in totally new areas which, where not much cooperation had taken place, but which are obviously important for both countries.
Absolutely. General, quite unexpected lines, something that the ambassador spoke about as well. A lot has been announced and spoken about as far as defense cooperation is concerned.
Yes, actually what is happening on the defense side has been, we knew that's going to happen, especially the defense, the sale of defense
helicopters.
Upper end defense technology, let us call it, because the MH-60 Romeo helicopters is the most advanced naval helicopter in the world today. So that, of course, if they are prepared to give it to India, I think it's a very, very positive development. I think the other significant factors which was mentioned both by Prime Minister Modi and President Donald Trump is energy. And I think while he mentioned that there has been a 60% increase, and President Donald Trump, thank you Prime Minister, which you saw so nicely said, I think this is going to increase much further. So we are going to see much larger sales as far as energy, our purchase of energy. We are deficient of energy from the United States, and the letter of cooperation between Indian Oil and Exxon Limited. I think that's also a very important takeaway, because there is going to be a great deal of cooperation on these matters. But having said all that, what really impressed me really was what was not said. You see, the body language of both the leaders, I think they were so relaxed, so comfortable, so at ease. That itself indicated that everything has gone well with the discussions which they have had. I think this is really just setting a framework for much, much greater cooperation. He has mentioned on the strategic aspect the Quad. I think that will send not very happy news to some countries.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
But the Quad, I think, is now going to pick up. As I had been speaking earlier on the show, that the Quad is there, but at a very low level. The meetings are taking place at lower levels. I think we are looking at an upgradation of levels as far as the Quad is concerned. The second thing which, when he spoke about was, and incidentally, the Indian Ocean, the Indo-Pacific was also mentioned by Prime Minister Modi, where he used the words, an Indo-Pacific, a rules-based global order.
Correct.
Now, that is something which is a very great concern to us.
And even the President Trump spoke about free and open Indo-Pacific.
And then when he spoke on terrorism, I think it is very important to understand the emphasis which was laid by President Donald Trump on drugs. Because as everybody knows now, there is a very strong linkage between finances to terrorism and drugs. It is very, very closely linked to each other. I'm sorry. Most of the terrorist financing actually takes place through drug deals.
Correct.
Because then it's very difficult to trace the money. So I think when you're looking at counter-terrorism operations, we are going to see much, much greater cooperation. When you're looking into certain development activities, there'll be much greater cooperation. In defense, I think we are looking at a totally different paradigm from now onwards.
Absolutely. Our Foreign Affairs editor Akhilesh Suman was at Hyderabad House. In fact, he is still there. Let's go across to him to get us the latest updates and details. Akhilesh, take us through what you just witnessed.
You know that what I witnessed is really very encouraging, because what was more interesting to see, the officials, the ministers present were very relaxed. And I think that there is an understanding between the two countries to encourage and increase the development partnership, also strategic understanding. And that is why it was announced that we are moving towards comprehensive global partnership in coming days. And in that context, aspects were discussed, all aspects were discussed, that includes right from economy to defense to security. And what I think is, hampering both leaders to announce big ticket is just because there is election in November in America. And I think that President Donald Trump is just hesitating not to make any big moving announcement before that. But I think understanding between the two leaders have been made, and that is why there were 3 rounds of talks. One was a restricted meeting where both dignitaries were present along with some senior officials. Then there was a delegation level meeting, and then third was one-to-one meeting between the two. So I think all aspects are discussed, and I think in coming days we will see that there are many things that is under carpet that will come and be implemented in a slow and steady manner. So it is going to be a relationship of the century, as has been declared by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and in so many terms President Donald Trump also. And everything depends now on how President Donald Trump fares after November. So, I think the roadmap is clear. A roadmap has been created and made between the two countries, between the two leaders, that how we have to grow, because President Donald Trump has already spent 3.5 years, and now he has to go 6 years more, and he's already in campaigning mode. And I think that is why we have created a roadmap, and it will be implemented in slow and steady manner, and big ticket things will come after November, friends.
Okay, all right. Akhilesh, thank you so much for joining us there with those details and bringing us up to date with what exactly took place and transpired at Hyderabad House. Professor, let's take this issue of the Quad initiative forward. Now, US President very clearly talking about it, saying that it is not just a meeting, but much more than that. So clearly a message there being sent, and clearly he wants to take this initiative forward and wants to ensure that it is a workable solution to the problems in the Indo-Pacific.
Yes, in some ways I think it's heartening to see the American president making Quad the centerpiece of his I would call the Indo-Pacific strategy, because we were lacking an institutional mechanism and though we have had a few meetings of the Quad, they have not really been vigorous and rigorous enough to give shape to any kind of a more robust articulation. So I think today when President Trump is announcing this or is making it central to his vision of the Indo-Pacific, I think you will see a sort of a regeneration of this concept in some ways, a reinvigoration of this concept. And other three countries, including India, would be looking at it much more carefully than they have done so far, because so far the approach has been, yes, do something about it, but not take it too seriously. But I think now we will see it being taken a bit more seriously, and some of the major initiatives which have been languishing, like the connectivity initiative, which was announced, where the four countries decided to pool their resources, was actually something that will now pick up pace, because I think it also links very clearly to the sort of Indo-Pacific vision that not only India and America but also Japan and Australia have for the region. And I think what we have seen in this statement is also, one can sort of say that terminologies don't really matter, but in this case, when you are talking of a comprehensive global partnership, strategic partnership, it is actually a comprehensive and strategic partnership. It is actually global in scope. You can see the kind of issues that were on the table. So you almost looking at energy transmission from America's Middle East to India. You can looking at Indo-Pacific. You are looking at Afghan-Pakistan theatre, terrorism. So I think the expanse of this partnership is quite wide, both geographically and thematically, and that was reflected in the kind of statements that came out from the two leaders. Also, the ambition has grown. Let's make it something which is more transformative, like putting emphasis on issues like health and education. And also making the case that, look, future technologies are going to be, as Prime Minister Modi mentioned, that cutting edge technologies, emerging strategic technologies, and how India has already played a very important role in that through Indian Americans, but also how they need to be translated into gains for India. So we are looking at a landscape where this relationship actually cuts across various themes, cuts across various geographies, and that was reflected in the way the two leaders have thought about it and gave expression in their respective statements.
Absolutely. Ambassador, very clearly the focus was on the Indo-Pacific there. We heard both the leaders speak about the Indo-Pacific at length. And clearly the United States wants India to play a bigger role in the region. How prepared are we to reciprocate to the US, and how prepared are we to respond to how much that the US wants us to do in the region?
Well, I hope that we reciprocate more than what we have done in the past. We have been a bit diffident, if I may say so, in the past, about playing a greater role in the Indo-Pacific, and also in the context of the Quad. Till a few years ago, we were, hesitant to be in the same room with the other members of the Quad. But slowly we have, come out of that situation, and I hope that we will shed our diffidence and hesitation and play a more energetic role in the Quad, because we are, geographically speaking, geopolitically speaking, we are very uniquely placed, more than the other, I would say, than the other three players. If you look at India's position, straddling both the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific. So it is a matter of satisfaction to me that that the Quad has been given this importance, and again, and the Indo-Pacific, of course, and I think, in fact, the sale of the Seahawk helicopter to India, it fits in very nicely with this concept of a bigger Indian role in the Quad and in the Indo-Pacific.
Right.
Because you will need the right weapons, to play that kind of role. So I am very pleased with this, and I hope that our decision makers play a more energetic role in the Indo-Pacific in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, Ambassador, those are the different aspects. Let me bring in General Karoj here. General Karoj, on one more aspect, which has been spoken about by both the leaders, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, in terms of the cooperation, mutual cooperation, is setting up of a counter-narcotics center. So that also is very significant because all of us are aware that much of the dirty money or the money laundering aspect in terms of the terror financing is also done through narcotics trade.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. You see, this counter-narcotics center, I think, because there'll be very great cooperation between the two countries as it is being set up jointly. Now, terror funding is a very large percentage of the terror funding actually comes through narcotics. And if you can actually hit out at the narcotics trade, we are making a very strong blow against all the terrorist factions. So this is, I think, one of the stronger counter-terrorism measures. And now that we have an institutional mechanism to go for it, I think this is very strong.
Okay,
Yeah.
Professor Pant, before we take a small break, your comments on this counter-narcotics aspect.
I think this is, as General Katoch said, this is a welcome step, and I think very important from both. You have this has been a pet project for President Trump, and I think for India also the regional security, and I think that the terror question is integrally linked with how we tackle this very problem. So the two countries are deciding to getting together on this question, and by building institutional mechanisms, I think that is to be welcomed, and that is perhaps that also cuts across various other issues which are on the table, including terrorism, including extremism, and how do you manage regional security architecture in the region.
Okay, so there it is, and these are some of the aspects, as you can see, the visuals on your screen as well from Hyderabad House after that joint statement by both the leaders, that is President Trump and Prime Minister Modi as well. We'll take a short break here, but on the other side, when we come back, we will give you all the details as well.